Today's morning keynote with John Sorial will be a Q&A. And I think it will be a good format because he has so many different perspectives to present. Now, John is the founder and managing partner of the plant-based brand TaDah Foods, which TaDah, I love that. And I'm going to ask John about the name in a second. Over the past 10 years, John has taken TaDah from concept to a national distributed CPG brand found in retailers like Target, Whole Foods Market, Publix, Kroger, and Sprouts. Prior to selling over 5 million falafel meals, John was vice president of marketing and sales at Primus Telecommunications and director of strategic partnerships and acquisition marketing at AOL Time Warner. John holds a BS in chemical engineering from the Johns Hopkins University. John has broken the Coptic social media and internet when he got on Shark Tank. I remember probably getting forwarded like 20 of the posts. Oh, Coptic guy on Shark Tank. And then I looked into it. And on a personal note here, John Sorial, I said, the name sounds familiar. And then I asked a friend of mine who knew John, and it turns out that John is married to Mary, who was my Sunday school student. Now, of course, John, you got the best girl there is. Obviously, she got an incredible Sunday school education. And I know John, wants to keep me humble, but he doesn't want to tell me that Mary told him I was her favorite Sunday school teacher, I'm sure. Or not. But actually, she is an amazing person, and I'm so thrilled that you're joining us. By the way, John is a member of the Coptic Chamber, and he is member number 100. So, and we are, by the way, we're almost at, I think the last count was almost 140. So we're growing, we're getting referrals. By the way, the referral business with the Chamber, I'm telling you, I get referral requests probably daily. So this is exciting stuff. John, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. So let's dive into it. Your background is chemical engineering from Johns Hopkins. So what were you planning? What was your career plan once you graduated? What did you want to do?
Well, I think we should probably start off with, I actually never wanted to be a chemical engineer, but as the son of Coptic immigrants, right? I think I mentioned this on the show. I think everyone here can relate. I had a clearly defined career path ahead of me, right? As long as it was a doctor, a pharmacist, an engineer, or a lawyer, right? Yeah. As long as I picked one of those four, my family wouldn't disown me. I just happened to be, decent enough at math and science, and went into engineering, and viewed engineering as less about obtaining a particular degree, but more about creative problem solving and how to approach problems and solve them, and being able to apply that. So, I did that for some time after I graduated, and partly out of obligation, but partly because that was, where, I felt God was leading me after college, and, did that for about 6.5 years, worked for a specialty chemicals company that worked in oil refining, was one of the youngest engineers that they hired into the position, and ended up traveling the world, consulting and doing technical engineering work for companies like ExxonMobil, BP, lots of engineering firms like that. And, but after a while, I wasn't utilizing the side of my brain that was, crying to be used, which was, the more creative side of things. And so I made a transition into the world of corporate marketing.
Did you have passion for engineering?
No, I had zero passion.
What do you say to people who say that in order for you to be successful, you have to be passionate about what you're doing?
I think enjoying what you're doing will allow you to push through the inevitable obstacles and challenges that you're going to face. But I think we're too quick to leave certain situations, and we kind of disregard how God might be using your current situation to help grow you and help mold you, right? Because if you have that growth mindset, if you have that mindset of whatever the situation, whether I'm enjoying it or not, there's something to be gained, something to learn, something for me to be able to improve myself from, then that allows you to push through. And I always tell people, people that I've managed in the past, you never want to be running from something. You want to be running towards something, right? That, it's just that mindset of, okay, I want to be going towards something, not just because I feel like we tend to be a little bit impatient, right? And sometimes it takes time, right? I know I'm 44, right? And I've been doing, TaDah Foods for almost 10 years. And I have many peers who have either, succeeded wildly and exited their companies, and I have many peers that have shut down. And I think everyone's path is going to be unique, and, waiting on God, for his timing, which is always better than our timing, is really important.
And this reminds me of those who are constantly comparing themselves to others. I think there's a danger and a pitfall in doing that, because you're on your own timetable, and God helps you on your individual timetable. And so I think we've all experienced the peers who have succeeded very, very rapidly, and those who haven't. And we often do that comparison thing, which I think can be a little dangerous. I think we all have to focus on how we can be the best at what we're doing in the time that we're doing it, and following God's plan. So I think that's a really good point. So your professional background was in sales and marketing and strategic partnerships. So where did falafel come from?
So
How did that develop? Did you have a dream one day, and you were give us the
no,
details on that.
no. So my family is from New York City. My mom and dad my mom's from Alexandria, Egypt, and my dad's from Mahalla, but they immigrated to New York City. My father was a chemical engineer. My mother had a degree in psychology, but like most immigrants who come to the United States, and they're trying to carve out a life for themselves, they got into the food industry, and they were very, very successful in New York City, owned multiple eateries, and did catering, and did all types of things in the food industry. All of my uncles and aunts had some form of deli, or high-end French restaurants, or even like Mexican fast casual chains before Chipotle was a thing. And so I was always in the food realm. I always had a passion for it. I love the creative side of cooking, but there's also a science to it, right? So it's this marriage of art and science. So I knew I always wanted to do something in the world of food. And the initial concept for my company, which I had named, our parent company is actually called Eat Good, Do Good. It's a social venture. And it came out of when I had left the corporate world. I was actually working for the church. And it was this crazy time in my life in which, I just left a VP position, and I thought I was on my way to becoming a chief marketing officer, and had opportunities, that, at Apple and Microsoft and Nike that I was considering, but things just didn't seem to be working out. And I was, talking to my priest, and I said, the way things are happening seems to be spiritually led. And I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And my wife had just had our second child, Elijah. And that's when I joined the church. And I said, because I found corporate world to be kind of, once you get to certain levels, there's certain things that you see, and I'm not saying this is universal, but that I saw at the companies that didn't sit well with me, and kind of left me hollow in how I felt. And so, I worked at the church, and while I was working at the church, I saw the missions and the different non-for-profit organizations. They spent such an inordinate amount of time fundraising, and that bothered me because I saw that was taking them away from where their skills were really needed, which was in operating the social outreach programs that they were doing locally and abroad. So the idea for this social venture, Eat Good, Do Good, kind of stemmed for that. And I resorted back to one of my earlier loves, which was food. And the idea for the company was actually the Better Bechamel Company, right? I was going to make bechamel, an Egyptian staple, right?
Hold on, you are talking my language now. When you
Yeah,
say bechamel,
yeah,
I need a few seconds just for quiet time here. Bechamel is
yeah.
definitely one of my favorites.
And the company was actually called the Better Bechamel because growing up, who hasn't invited an American to their house for a birthday party or a graduation or any holiday, and your mother or your grandmother would serve bechamel, and your American friends, whether they're Korean or Haitian or Italian or Yugoslavian, and growing up in New York City, I was friends with all of these people. Universally, they would try it and they would love it. And so I was convinced I was going to make bechamel the next lasagna. And I developed a pretty good recipe for myself over the years. But anyway, chance had it where I ended up in a meeting. This is before the company was even formed. This was an informal meeting. One of the people that worked for me at AOL, Time Warner, used to be a former Costco buyer. So he set up a meeting with the frozen food buyer. And in advance of that meeting, I was doing some research and I was hungry. And so I just whipped up some falafel, because I had the ingredients. So I whipped up some falafel and I had some hummus, but I didn't have any pita bread. So I had, just tortillas laying around. So I stuffed the ingredients into the tortilla. I rolled it up and I was eating it with my left hand, right? I was holding it and I was typing on my computer. And as I'm working and eating, I was like, wow, this is really good. And this is so convenient that I can hold it with one hand. And I was like, you know what, let me mess around in the kitchen, and, just kind of inspired and led to do that. Ended up bringing 3 versions of bechamel to this meeting with the Costco buyer. This is before the company had been formed. And then 3 versions of the falafel wraps. And I always worked in multiples of 3 because it's a holy number, right? And I sat there with this guy and he's eating the food and he's like, everything tastes amazing. But he pointed to the falafel, which wasn't even on my radar at the time. He goes, if I were to go move forward, I would go with this, right? He called in one of the other buyers. She tried it. We had a great discussion, ended up leaving there and pivoted at that point in time based on that feedback that I got, and moved away from the bechamel concept and moved towards the falafel concept. And it was, the rest is history.
You mentioned an incredibly important concept in business, and frankly in success in general, which is the pivot. You don't know how many times I've spoken to entrepreneurs, and very successful entrepreneurs. In fact, I've mentioned one entrepreneur, businessman. His name is Joe Sugarman, who invented the blue blocker sunglasses. They used to have an infomercial in the 1980s. Joe Sugarman, by the way, if you can get any of his books or tapes, he is a marketing genius. And I went to dinner with him one night and he talked about the pivot, which was basically he didn't plan on making sunglasses. He was riding with someone in a car who happened to have sunglasses that NASA was using. And he said, and they blocked out the color, the blue, which was good for the eyes. And he thought, you know what? That's not what I want to do, but I have an opportunity here. And John, it sounds very familiar, the pivot. So, I mean, I think what we can just from that little segment is, as entrepreneurs and small business owners, we have to be sensitive to what's happening around us, not just stuck in one path, no peripheral vision. You have to be able to pivot and adapt if the opportunity comes. this is such a great lesson, and I do appreciate you telling us. How did TaDah? How did you come up with the name TaDah Foods?
Um, I'll answer that in 1 second, but I did want to just comment, piggyback on what you just said.
Yeah.
There's a balance, right? Between pivoting, right? Because as an entrepreneur, as a leader for an organization, you have to have a strong vision, right? You got to have something that's leading you, right? And that's got
Right.
to be your North Star. But some people confuse having a strong vision or outlook of where you want to go with being uncompromising, right? So there, it's this balance, right? It's
Yeah.
basically taking, like you had mentioned, taking the promptings, right? People say, the universe is prompting you. We say it's, as Coptic people, the urging of, the prompting of the Holy Spirit, or the urges of the Holy Spirit, right? Being in tune with those things and realizing where doing a pivot is appropriate versus the need to press on in your original vision, right? And that's really requires a lot of, clarity in what you want to accomplish.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to kind of add to that.
No,
Um,
yeah, it's an excellent point.
so as for the name TaDah, so after we had formed the Eat Good, Do Good, I got a little bit of angel funding, and started working on, the concept and the brand. And because I had a strong background in marketing and branding and sales from AOL Time Warner and at Primus Telco, I knew how important it was going to be to get the brand right. And I had hired a small agency that, I kind of networked into them and kind of told them what I was working on. And one of the stories I had related, okay, was at the time, my oldest son, Isaiah, I forgot how old he was. He must have been less than 5 years old. And we're in a restaurant, and anyone who has kids, your first child, you love all your kids the same. But with the first child, it's a new experience. So it's a little bit different, right? And so with Isaiah, I was particularly obsessed with seeing the world through his eyes, right? Because everything was new to him, right? And I love to see him discover things on his own. And so we were at a restaurant, and he had just randomly reached into my wife's ice water glass and took out the lemon. My wife was talking to someone else, and I kind of like gave her a little elbow, and I nudged her, and I said, I think he's going to put it in his mouth. So he takes the lemon, he puts it in his mouth, and he like kind of closes his eyes and, puckers his lips a little bit and puts the lemon down. And then he kind of like licks a little bit, and he picks the lemon back up, puts it back in his mouth, and starts sucking on it. And he's making this face because it's acidic and it's slightly bitter, but he's enjoying that sourness, the flavor. And I turned to and then he goes around and puts his hands in everyone else's glasses. We had to order all new water glasses for the table. And he picked out all of the lemons, and he starts sucking on the lemon. And I said to my wife, we got to just watch a human being discover the flavor acid and sour for the first time, right? And it was like this new experience. And so I'm relaying this story to the branding agency, and we're doing this brainstorming session. And I said, I want the company, because I think as humans get older, as adults get older, they become a little bit jaded, or they become a little bit closed off to new experiences, and food was a great example, right? Oh, I don't like this type of food, or frozen food, is usually low quality or can only be this. So I said, I want this company to be about taking people on this culinary journey and introducing them to these new experiences, these new delights, right? Someone who's never tried falafel, so, we go through this, and then they come up with all these different names. And I knew that I didn't want our brand to be overly ethnic, because I wanted it to have mass appeal, because I wanted the average consumer in Ohio to be able, I wanted the brand to be modern and approachable. And they came up with this
Right.
name, TaDah, like TaDah, right? This is
Yeah.
what falafel tastes like, or TaDah, this is how high quality frozen food can taste, or like TaDah, by buying this, you're helping us support, non-for-profits or other charities. And that was, we honed in on that, and we came with a very strong design language centered around the TaDah brand, because we really wanted to stand out on the shelf, and we wanted it to be memorable. And I got to tell you, we launched into trade in 2010, and it would be the following year at trade shows, and people would walk by our booth and say, "TaDah, oh, I think I saw you here." I think we weren't on the shelf at that many places at that point, but people thought they knew the brand, right? Oh, I saw you at Target. We weren't in Target at the time. We actually they've had studies done, like within our industries. We've been called out and referenced in breakout sessions at industry events as, you know, young companies that have gotten graphic design and branding right, you know, from the very first moment they've been on the shelf. But we've continued to iterate and improve upon that design language, you know, and to make the brand hopefully as memorable as possible.
Do you think having that name contributed or has contributed to your success?
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. The name, the package design, the food, you know, there's countless things that contribute to success. It'd be hard to pin it, but yes, I think having something that is memorable, something that is impactful and, you know, fun, I think that's definitely contributed to our success.
Okay. By the way, everybody, it is John and Mary's anniversary weekend, and we are taking him away from his wife for 1 hour. And I said to tell Mary I apologize profusely for that, but we do appreciate that you made the time for us today. So happy anniversary.
Thank you. She was happy to have me out of the house. So you're doing her a favor.
I'm not so sure about that. Eheb Riyadh said, "You are making me hungry." That's his comment. You know what? I'm getting hungry myself talking about this. And based on the reviews that you've gotten, John, and all, you know, people put up videos of themselves eating the TaDah, the falafel, and what an experience it is for them. And I mean, talk about the importance of your customers being your promotional vehicle and how you can do that.
I don't know if I can overstress that importance, right? And I think it begins with being single-minded and almost obsessive about whatever you are putting in front of your customers, right? Making the very best version of your product, or if you're selling yourself, as if you're providing a service business, right? Like, really, people talk about delighting the customers. It's so important because of the things that you talked about, right? You talked about earlier in our conversation about the referrals, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you provide something that delights people or something that people really enjoy, it allows your message to be amplified. Because when you're a small company, you're so incredibly resource constrained, right? We never, you know, in advance of Shark Tank, we never had any VC money. So it was that word of mouth marketing that you hear bandied about time and time again. It's so important, especially in today's social age. You know, there's this concept of signal to noise, right? It's an engineering term in terms of frequency, signal to noise. So right now, with everything that's going on in the world, in the news and on social media, there's a lot of noise because of the proliferation of these low cost and easy to access marketing tools. So anyone could put out a message and flood your social feed with an ad, right? So, but to get to cut through all that noise, to have a signal that's actually picked up by prospective customers, it's got to be something unique, either in what you're creating or in the source of the signal. So if, Ned, as you said, when we were on Shark Tank, people you knew forwarded the post, you know, 20 times to you, right?
Yeah.
And because it was from people you knew, people that you had a trust relationship with, it has a much bigger impact, right? I could spend $10,000 on Instagram ads, which we've never done, right? And get people to like and everything else. But I can engage 5 or 10 people that already care about the brand and work with them and have them spread it out to their network, and it'll have a much bigger impact at a much lower cost, right? So I can't say that we've been particularly good at this. And, you know, in 2021, as we've begin to continue building out the team here, and I can shift some of my focus on the areas where I have a little bit more expertise or passion for, you know, we hope to build on that, right? And it all starts with having an authentic point of view, an authentic voice, and connecting with the customers and really serving them something that is unique to anything else they can get in the marketplace, and building on that.
Okay, so serving them something unique, connecting with them, offering the best version of yourself. These are all organic things. I'm wondering, is there something that you can actually do to create that viral effect, or create that wow that gets them to want to make that video? I mean, can we manufacture it? Not in a fake way, but in a way that kind of pushes the process along. Because I agree with you, that's probably your biggest selling tool, is your satisfied customer.
Right. I would love to sit here and, after 20 plus years doing marketing sales, I think it's been proven time and time again, even though you'll have people out there that say they can, there is no formula for making something viral. There's anyone who tells you otherwise, and I'm going to go really out here and say they're lying to you. There is absolutely, they can say, here are some best practices to increase your chances of making something viral. But when something hits, it just hits. And then people post, you know, in hindsight, like to say, oh, these are the reasons X, Y, and Z was successful and why they went viral, right? When La Croix, the sparkling water, which everyone, you know, loves, right? And, you know, Malcolm Gladwell talks about this in his book, Tipping Point, about the things that make
book.
It's a fantastic book.
Yeah.
About the things that make ideas catch on, right? And you could pull examples here, but you look at La Croix. La Croix was a sparkling water brand that was around for, I think, 20 years, right? And then all of a sudden, hipsters started gravitating towards it. Sparkling water became a thing, and it sent them into the stratosphere, right? And now every major conglomerate or CPG strategic has a sparkling water line, right? But for years, you know, they were doing the same thing. It was the same can, the same formula, and it reached the tipping point, right? And I think there's some things you can do to increase your chances, but it really is what we say all the time. God will bless what he wants to bless, right? You do your part, and I know it's not what people want to hear, right? Give me the formula, John. I don't have a formula. Anyone who says they do, you could spend $100,000 on a creative ad campaign. You could try to make it funny, right? Like the Squatty Potty, right? We talked to those guys who did that video production, right? And it's like, you know, $50,000 to $70,000 on the video production, and then another $50,000 to $70,000 in ad spend for you to put there. And you go through, and they have some really big successes, right? But you've got a unicorn pooping soft serve ice cream, right? And it becomes a viral hit, right? Someone else could do something like that, and it's not. It reminds me of our very first trade show. So the biggest trade show in the natural food space is called Expo West. It's in Anaheim, California. There are over 100,000 attendees, thousands and thousands of companies. And this was when it was in 2010 or 2011 when we were going to launch the company into trade. We had developed a brand. I had done our first pilot run at a contract manufacturer, and we got a booth, and my investors were there with me. Their wives were helping out in the booth, and it was this, this beautiful chaos, and we didn't know what was going to happen. And while we're at the booth, in the aisle across from us was this very nice woman who had developed these, I think they were 100-calorie muffins, oatmeal, raisin, chocolate chip, 100 calories. And you look at the ingredients, and they were like this really clean ingredient. And it's a 3-day event, so people are always trading food with one another. And so, our people from our booth were eating her muffins. She was eating our falafels. Everyone's trading coconut water and everything. Anyway, we thought her product was a slam dunk. Who wouldn't want a delicious 100-calorie muffin? Our booth was flooded with interest. We had won awards at that first show. We had gotten agreements to do distribution in some very large retail stores. And we're packing up, and I asked the woman, how was the show? Because it was busy the whole time. And she was a little bit dejected, and she said, I didn't get a single piece. I didn't get a single interest. Like not one person wanted to carry the line. Right? And it hit me, right? What was the difference between my product and her product, other than the nature of the product itself? I felt her product was equally well designed, and it was a beautiful product. It was delicious. I would personally have bought it. All of the people in our booth, I thought that. And hereby, we're taking off. There's no predictor on these type of things. And people always want a formula because they want some kind of structure or roadmap or playbook to follow. And like we mentioned earlier, there's common threads that you can take away, but everyone's path is going to be unique, and you have to trust your instincts, and you have to trust, God to lead you on that right path. So it's a long-winded answer to there is no methodology for making something viral.
But you did make a good point where there are things that can sort of tap it along the way, push it along the way.
Sure.
One of which is celebrity endorsements. But ultimately, like you said, the product just has to resonate. It has
Correct.
to serve that. It has to touch them, fulfill, the need, and just give them the value and be a superior product. Because no matter who pitches it, ultimately, if someone tries it and they don't like it, that's the end of that. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, you could be well funded, and you can force your message so broad. Like if you've raised, and most of us, I don't think will ever be in this situation, if you've raised millions of dollars in VC money, right? Then you pay for these celebrity endorsements, and now you're reaching millions of people. And then you just basically hammer people over the head, right? Whether or not your product is great, the ubiquity of the message, you've contributed so much to the noise, you eventually, if you have enough money, but most of us aren't in that point, in that situation. So yeah.
okay. Let's switch our focus to Shark Tank a little. I can't believe we're already 40 minutes into this. Time has been flying. Let's talk about your Shark Tank experience. Okay. What I know that there are people who have tried for years and years to get on Shark Tank. So what made you want to get on there? How long did it take you?
So I never wanted to get on Shark Tank. Not something it wasn't something I aspired to. Part of it was probably a fear that I would have, the way I had structured, which I'm openly admitting, I out of ignorance, I didn't structure my cap table appropriately, right? So in the back of my head, I think I knew deep down inside, people like Mr. Wonderful would maybe pick apart my cap table structure. I think people would have an issue with, my desire and how I structure the company's giving, thinking it was too aggressive or too confusing. And in some regards, there's some truth to that. So I never aspired to do that. And we were doing fine. Yeah, we were just kind of like coming along as a company. I think the first 5 years of the company, we averaged triple-digit growth year over year. We're the fastest growing product in the natural frozen section. We were in the top 10 of all products. We were competing with an average of 2 SKUs on the shelf with, juggernauts, that have been in the industry for 15, 20 plus years, like Amy's Organics, that had dozens of SKUs on the shelf. And we were taking away market share from them. So we were doing great. And so we were riding that wave. And then, we had a series of events, that I don't think anyone would have anticipated, that really knocked the company for a loop. And that kind of began this very difficult, arduous time for me in the organization, where we're fighting, this uphill battle, and we were losing. And I found myself in my office by my, dealing with another horrible email or, something like I saw like what we were building, it was slowly starting to crumble and collapse. And it seemed that no matter what I can do, I couldn't get myself out of what some people in the business world call a death spiral, right? It's basically this, because you don't have the resources to kind of put yourself back on that growth curve, you start to basically swirl the toilet, if you will. And that's where we were. And it was this feeling of hopelessness. And I got into a very low point. And one of the most difficult things of running a company by yourself is you don't have a partner there to lean on or shoulder. And I had my investors who I leaned on, but that day-to-day, person sitting next to you, helping you, and you kind of go through this loneliness, and it forces you to turn to God, but like you get hopeless, right? And this is a time where I'm probably one of the most optimistic people you'll meet. And I found myself, I had my first anxiety attack. I would find myself at my desk sometimes because of the sheer hopelessness that was in front of me, like the enormity of the challenges without any way out. Sometimes I would end up crying at my desk, right? Never before. I'm not that type of person. I would sit there and like, how am I going to get out of this? And it was one of these days where I was fed up, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to apply online, right? So I applied online. I said, I got to try anything. I need some type of activation energy. I need some wind in our sails, something to kind of redirect, the path that we were on. And it was just on a whim. I applied online, thought nothing of it. I got an email back saying, I forget what season it was for. Maybe it was 9 or 10. Thank you. We have your application. Casting for season so-and-so is closed, but we'll keep your application on file. And that was maybe a year and a half before. And then fast forward, I'm sitting at my desk again, and I'm just dealing with another, supply issue or operational issue. And it was late at night, and I was done. And I was getting ready to slam my computer closed and just walk away because I needed to go for a walk or a bike ride. And I got like a new email notification, and it was, "Hi, it's so-and-so, casting from Shark Tank. I'd like to talk to you about your application." And so I wrote back, I said, "Ha ha ha, is this a joke?" And he responded, "Yeah, we get that all the time." And we had a call, and then that was it. It was just one application that I had sent a year and a half ago, and I had even forgotten that I had applied. And I was just kind of like gutting my way through, doing whatever I could to keep the company moving forward, trying to get it back on track. And God provided a miracle, which that's what I view Shark Tank as. It was definitely a miracle for us.
The life of an entrepreneur, like you said, can be very lonely. I think most of us either work on our own or have a small team, and you go through difficulties. Not everyone can have a Shark Tank moment, Shark Tank experience. So, from what you've experienced, what are just a couple of bits of advice you can give someone who may be struggling right now, or is trying to reach a certain financial level or revenue level and isn't there, and it's what advice can you give?
So the first thing I would say is your entrepreneurial journey does not define you, right? I think we so often confuse success in the business world with self-worth. And we have a self-worth that comes from our relationship with God, right? So making sure that you don't confuse, success in the business world or here on earth with, like a commentary on who you are as a person. Because I had to lean on the knowledge that I'm loved and I'm still going to be like this person. And, I'm going to succeed. If this fails, I'm going to succeed in other areas of my life because I have unique talents that God has given me. Right. And that this journey that I'm going through will grow me and will make me better. It sounds cliched, but I had to. I leaned so heavily on my faith. There was a point in time where Mary, my wife, she saw the stress of what I was going through and what it was doing to me. And she begged me to just let it go. Right. And we talked about this earlier about when do you pivot, or change direction, and when do you press on with your original vision? And I kept putting it in prayer, and I kept saying, Mary, you know how much I love you and I respect you. And none of this would be possible without the support of my wife, right? Because she ended up sacrificing some of her wants and needs in order to keep working. And she's been blessed in her career and help support the family while I'm taking these huge risks with the company. But I told her, I said, I still feel God directing me to move forward, right? And I kept pushing forward and saying, I obviously lean on the Bible for all of my guidance if I can. There's not one instance in any of the Bible stories that we grew up reading and we continue to read where someone accomplished something great by giving up, right? God's never like, hey, you know what? This isn't working out. Give up. No. It seems hopeless. It seems impossible. That's God's specialty, right? Just keep pushing forward, keep persevering, keep trying to learn. So I think holding on to that faith and knowing, because I'd gotten to the point where I was talking to a lot of my friends and people that I trusted and cared about. And I said, I can't believe I've spent the best earning years of my life. I was like a career professional. I was, a C-level executive, right? Or I was on my way to becoming a C-level executive. I was in the executive suite. I threw that away. I can't believe I did that, and I'm going to lose everything. And I had to have my friends encourage me and tell me, hey, you know what? You have gained so much during this time, right? So don't look at everything as absolutes, that if you don't accomplish this, it's a failure, right? Look at the things that you have learned along the way and be accepting. And it was in accepting failure, I think, is the first step to success, right? When I thought I was going to lose everything and I let it go, I said, God, I've spent at the time it was 8.5 years of my life devoted to this business. I've seen you bring it to the highest highs, and now I'm at the lowest lows. It's your company, God. If you want it to fail, I'm okay with that. Just direct my next step. Show me what I'm supposed to do, where I'm supposed to go next. And the whole while, I'm still fighting. I'm still pushing. I'm leaning on relationships, right? Every relationship I had built over the years. Can you please help me out here? Can you please extend our credit terms? Can you please forgive? Can we negotiate some of this debt down?